Continuing on with our second lecture about ethics. Today we're going to look at the big approaches to morality. Again, I am joined by my beloved son on my back. So let's talk about these different approaches to morality. First is objectivism. This is a very old and very popular idea about morality. Objectivism says that there are moral truths independent of what people think about them. The idea that there are moral rules, moral norms, and moral laws that exist whether or not people find them. So this is the idea that just like there are, laws of physical reality, give the example here, electricity existed before Ben Franklin discovered it. Moral truths exist before people reach out and grasp and understand them. And whether or not people do understand them, there still are right and wrong things to do. Now, this is not the same thing as absolutism. Absolutism would say, for example, it's wrong to lie. Therefore, there is no situation in which it's acceptable to lie. Objectivism might also say it is wrong to lie, but without that absolutist view, it might also say, but there are some situations where it's morally permissible to lie. Maybe, lying to a child. Not that I would ever do that, right? But, to avoid some particularly hard truth, perhaps, maybe. But objectivism may allow for some exceptions. One of the implications of objectivism is that if we come to a moral question that is unclear into what is right or what is wrong, then we should be able to figure out what the right thing is with reasoning. We should be able to do ethics, to ask ethical questions, to find what the right answer is. It also tells us that there are universal standards that apply to everybody, no matter your background or where you're from. We have universal standards about rightness and wrongness. This is the idea of objectivism. Objectivism is not the only school of thought. Another might be subjective relativism. Subjective relativism says that there is such a thing as right for me. An action is right if I believe it is right. You guys probably know someone who follows this in their life. Someone who says when they do something, it may not be right for you, but this is right for me. This is the morally correct action for me. These are big questions. I had a friend, his girlfriend cheated on him. He was very unimpressed with this, no surprise. When he pressed her about it, hey, why'd you do this? And they were fighting, and she said, look, I didn't feel I was getting a fair shake from our relationship. This was the right thing for me to do. Now, some may believe that cheating on your partner is objectively wrong. Maybe it's only wrong in some circumstances, or for some people. Subjective relativism might leave us with a problem, which is you are your own referee. If you think it's right, then it's right. If you think it's wrong, then it's wrong. Can we really ever decide on rightness or wrongness amongst ourselves together? Perhaps not, if this is our belief system. Moral disagreements are impossible because it's so subjective. Rightness and wrongness are just matters of perspective or preference. However, there is clearly a nugget of truth to this, that there are some things that might be right or wrong in different circumstances, perhaps. Maybe it is, certainly it is true that our moral experiences are unique to ourselves, as are our moral views. So what is cultural relativism? Well, cultural relativism takes that last line of thought a little bit farther. Cultural relativism says the right thing is the thing that your culture says is right. An action action is morally correct if your culture believes so. The concepts of right and wrong are cultural constructs. This is an increasingly popular moral philosophy. There are some interesting implications. First, we have to give this perspective its due. Clearly, there are some cultural preferences about rightness and wrongness. And maybe we can't just assume that our cultural preferences about right and wrong are the objective or universal ones. But there may be a couple issues with just accepting wholeheartedly whatever the culture says is morally right. For example, all cultures would be morally infallible. You can't question the culture because the culture is right. Cultures can't be criticized. If you're from another culture, you can't criticize this culture. This culture is morally right because that's what the culture says. And if you're an insider, you can't reject your own culture's views because they are correct because the culture came to that conclusion. So clearly there might be some issues with this, but there, as I said, are some big takeaways, some big truths to it. Another one is that all cultures really do share some values. Cultures believe in caring for young. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Say yes? All right. Cultures believe in generally telling the truth. And most cultures have restrictions, if not bans, on murder. Why do these universal cultural rules exist? Well, if you want your culture to exist, if your society will succeed, it's probably going to need some basic rules like don't kill each other, don't lie all the time. Without those kind of basic game, rules of the game, you may not be a society for very long. Emotivism. This is a moral approach based on feeling. Moral judgments aren't true or false. It's about what you feel. If you feel that it's the right thing, then it is the right thing. Essentially, this says that moral disagreements don't really exist. They're just differences in perspective, differences in feeling. Nothing really is good or bad. As we proceed through this study of ethics, we're going to have some rules. If we're going to engage in moral discourse, we're going to have to explain why we feel something is right or wrong. We're going to have to support our claims with good evidence. And we're going to have to hold everybody to common standards. If we can do those, then we should be able to engage in some fruitful dialogue about morality. All right. Thank you.